Hello, everyone, and welcome to Serious Coin, the podcast where we have rich conversations about wealth. I'm your host, Kelly Willis-Green. I remember a former business colleague of mine used to say, money doesn't simplify your life, it complicates it. And you only understand this when you come into a lot of money. Well, my guest today is someone who helps people manage that complexity to live a simpler, more enjoyable life. He is Mario Seiler, managing partner of Modern Butler, an estate and lifestyle management company based in Los Angeles. Modern Butler provides luxury property management, household systems development, staffing, project management, and everything from event planning, transportation and travel to lifestyle services for their rich and often famous clients. Basically, anything you can dream up, as long as it's legal, Mario says. Prior to co-founding Modern Butler with his partner Robert Gertz, Mario worked for luxury hotels, residences, and people of distinction worldwide. He is truly a global citizen, born in Germany, educated in Canada, and he's traveled extensively throughout the world. I found my conversation with Mario a really interesting window on how other people live. And while I don't think I have the imagination to spend money in ways that some of Mario's clients do, I found it fascinating to hear the degree to which some people have streamlined their lives. Like the client who doesn't even have a key to his house because he counts on Mario's team for that. And then on the other hand, there are the billionaires who've come into sudden money and they look to Mario to teach them about what is now possible for their life. This episode is food for thought for anyone who's looking for inspiration on how to professionalize your lifestyle admin, and anyone who's just plain curious about the lifestyles of LA's super rich. Mario and I talked about everything from the benefits of branding your estate property to how to set boundaries with household staff, to why sometimes he has to rein in the spending habits of his clients. Have a listen. I think you'll really enjoy this one.
During COVID, we've noticed that wealthy people, they've really created their own little self-efficient bubble. In Southern California, it's very interesting how within like 2-3 hours of drive, you can really have it all. You have the beach, then you have the city life in LA, and Big Bear, which is about 2.5 hours away, you can go skiing. And then you have the desert, Palm Springs and Palm Desert. So people have bought properties within Southern California and created their own little world. Like if we can't go and travel anymore, then we'll just go to Big Bear. We can go skiing there. We don't have to fly to Switzerland for that. We can go to the deserts to mix it up a bit. And then if we want the beach, we go to Malibu or to Orange County. So people have really kind of like created their own little, self-efficient world in that sense.
And are you saying they have homes in those places that they bop around in between?
Yes. The inventory right now in Southern California is very low because people have just bought everything up.
Yeah.
Again, just to have their own little world. And with that said, all these homes that they have now in their portfolio require maintenance and someone to be there to take care of them.
One of the services you describe on your website is estate branding. And I think that might be a new concept for many people. It was to me, at least as it's described. What is estate branding and why would somebody need it?
Estate branding it's definitely an interesting project. It's a bit of a niche product. Ultimately, it gives your home, your estate, an identity. Anything from a name, most people obviously have a logo with it, just like a big company. There is a logo associated with it. And it goes then on stationery, on pens, on your towels. We have a client where it's on the guest slippers, on linen. Obviously, it's a bit of a luxury item because you don't really need it to live and survive. But it also does give your home, it's sort of like a little bit of an elevation. Like in Los Angeles, there's a property, I think it's the best example. It's called Fleur de Lis, and everyone in town knows this house.
Is that in Bel Air?
It's in Bel Air, yeah. It used to be one of the biggest properties in town and beautifully designed and created with lavish parties. And the name Fleur de Lis was chosen for this property. And it really is like everyone in that world. Everyone knows Fleur de Lis. If you tell them this name, people know who the person is, where the house is. So it can be a little bit of a marketing tool if you want to sell your XXL estate to give it some character. Obviously, it's a bit of an ego too if your house has a name. But again, like your yacht has a name. So why not your property?
And of your clients, how many of them are new to these lifestyles? In other words, how many are new to wealth and how many are from multi-generational wealth?
That's a good question. I think it's about 50-50, I would say. Like we're lucky to work with a lot of people that just had that generational wealth, where in certain ways it's easier to work with them because they grew up with a whole support team and they're used to having sometimes a multitude of people in their personal space. And for people who are not used to that, it's a bit of a different process and a challenge to get that same easy flow going.
I'm glad you say that because I've often thought that myself. I mean, I didn't grow up with a household staff, and I have sometimes thought I would need the training in terms of how to engage with them and how to deal with them. They'd be better trained than I am. Are you having to educate or train your clients on how to be wealthy?
I mean, I hate to say it, but yes, we actually do. And the word training sometimes feels like very negative, but I don't think it really is. It's just a change in your circumstances. So it's allowing people in your home, in your personal space, and becoming to some extent part of the family, part of the setup. So if people that come from generational wealth, they're used to that. They've grown up with the nannies. There's always been a housekeeper around, the butlers and all of this. If you have someone who's come to recently to wealth, it's a different approach. And a lot of people say it's like, I would be so uncomfortable, but it takes time. You need to get used to someone. You need to get used to a different system. I think it's really just also understanding what the expectation is. I have a lot of clients, especially in the celebrity world, they have 1,000 things they want done, but then the request comes, but I don't want to see anyone. I'm like, well, how is this possible?
So give me an example. What kind of things they want done where that would be a problem?
In terms of housekeeping is always a good example, like that every time they use the bathroom, like take a shower and this and that everything gets touched up immediately. But that person needs to be at the house. I mean, I have a client, funny enough, she built a house and she added an outside access to her bathroom so that the housekeeper doesn't have to go through the bedroom into the bathroom. And then they can just come every hour and touch up the bathroom without her ever being disturbed. And if she is in the bathroom, she just locks that door. So it goes that far where people really want their privacy. But yeah, sometimes it is really educating people. I've had a client, very lovely gentleman, single guy, and he was telling me, like, Mario, I spend so much time. I have to go to the store, and you know how long it takes to get anywhere in Los Angeles. And then it's the grocery shopping, and you bring it home, you unpack it, you put it all away, and then you prep, and then you cook. And luckily, the housekeeper cleans it. But it's like 5 hours. It's like gone like nothing. And I looked at him, and I mean, I almost wanted to laugh. And I'm like, you know that you can have a chef. And he literally looked at me and I'm like, I can? I'm like, yeah, you can have anything you want. Like, you have the means to do that.
Listening to Mario describe the adjustment of having a full complement of staff in your home all the time and giving up a measure of privacy, I couldn't help but wonder if you also have to give up a measure of control. I mean, anytime you delegate anything to anybody, you have to accept that they may not do it exactly as you'd like. And so I asked him if clients have to have a lot of patience with that chef until she learns that you actually want cilantro and not mint in your green juice every morning. Mario says two things are necessary: a modicum of understanding while the staff get to know you, and open two-way lines of communication.
I have a couple that I've worked with, and the missus loves all the lights on property, in every room, everything lit up like a stadium, and that's just what she wants. And the mister comes home and is like, and it's not so much about the money, it's a waste. It's like, why is everything lit up? There's no one in these rooms, it's a waste of energy. So the staff's really confused at this point. What do we do? Do we turn it on? Do we turn it off? And one of the principals is always upset or not pleased. So it's really also understanding that sometimes you need to be on the same page and understand what is the instruction we give to the staff. And I mean, in that particular case, unfortunately, we didn't come to a compromise between Mr. and Mrs., so we just had to set up a system where, yeah, we work with the drivers and security to always know who's coming and going, and then flipping all the light switches on and off. And working around like that. That's why when I deal with staffing projects, I meet with the couple or the family, and then I meet with everyone individually. Because you know how it is. Most of the time, one party is always more agreeing to the other party, but then their requests, their wishes are not really met. So I really insist that I meet with everyone individually. And then I'm very open. I'm like, all right, so I've heard this is the consensus, but what do you really want? And I'm very direct and very frank. And if you really want what has just been communicated in that group setting, great, makes it even easier. But I also really want to understand, again, because I'm trying to avoid as many issues and as many problems that could potentially arise through that.
So tell me a little bit more about your clients. I know you're very discreet, and so you don't give names, but where's their wealth come from? Who are these people?
It's really a big array of different characters that we work with, which makes it even more fun because every day is different. Every character, every setup is different. We have people who come from a long history of very wealthy background that live a more traditional life than most of us do. And then we work with a few celebrities where life is a little crazier and a little bit more spontaneous. And then we have people who are very involved. They would like to be consulted for every dollar spent. What type of toilet paper do we buy today? Should we not get this? And then I have a client from overseas who is not even interested in a key in his house. He's like, you have it, I'll call you when I'm coming and you know what to do. And that's it. And I'm sending him weekly updates. And he's like, you don't even need to do that. And I'm like, no, I want you to be involved. This is your house. This is your estate. You should be aware of what's going on. So it's, yeah, every character is really different.
Can you give me some examples then? You mentioned the multi-generational wealth live a more traditional life. Give me an example of what that looks like.
I think it's a bit of a more routine life in general. Like the family, they have their ski chalet, so they go always to Switzerland. In summer, they go to Nantucket or they go to the south of France. They classically spend some time on the yacht. So it's, in a certain way, life is a little bit more predictable because you know they'll always be at Easter at the grandparents' estate or at the parents' estate. They always do Christmas in Switzerland to go skiing. So planning is a little easier.
And the celebrities. Life is a little more spontaneous. What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a celebrity and if you have all these invitations, all these events to go to, if you have a lot of money and you can be spontaneous, oh, let's go to this event, let's fly to the Maldives. There's someone's birthday in London, let's go there. And then you have, oh, I met someone at the dinner party, they've invited me to the yacht. So it's a very fast-paced environment to begin with because the options are almost endless.
It sounds exhausting, as you described it, actually. The life of a celebrity.
I mean, it is exhausting because there's a lot of components and there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's social media is bombarding you with images, and it's a bit unfortunately cliche. It's keeping up with the Joneses. It's like if you're an actress and you want to keep working and get these jobs and or promoting people want to stay relevant, and to stay influencer, you have to have your X amount of posts out there. You have to come up with something new that your followers haven't seen yet. So there is a lot of pressure in that sense too. So it's not just being able to sit back, relax, and enjoying it. There's work behind it.
I imagine even among your clients, even though you're dealing with the ultra wealthy, there's probably quite a range of net worth.
That's fair to say. I think it ranges from about, only 40, 50 million
Right.
to,
Billions.
yeah, I'm in billions.
I would suspect that, again, going back to the first generational wealth creators, you probably have a better understanding of what it's like to be a billionaire than someone who's just come into that position through the sale of a business or an IPO or something like that.
That is true. I mean, I do have to say, though, if someone just recently came into a lot of money for whatever reason, I almost want to say it's a little bit more fun to help and work with them because it's really starting not necessarily at zero, but it's much more involvement. And because if you have a lot of money and all of a sudden everything is possible, it's very tempting to just go overboard and go a little crazy. But then again, it's like where we step in and like, you want to be wealthy again in 2 years. So let's not blow through your lotto win or through the sale of your company. Let's set up systems.
So you have to do that sometimes, rein them in a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's throughout the board with some of our clients who get very enthusiastic about certain projects. Oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's remodel here, let's rip the floor out and go from, I don't know, herringbone floor to this new Ipe floor, where you at some point need to step in and say, listen, I just want to let you know, I mean, this is going to cost us $500,000. And it's not just the floor. Then I need to move you out of the house. So we need rental property, or you go to some of your other properties. Let's look at the calendar. Is it even feasible for you to go to your beach house? Or do you need to be in town? So it is my job to say, I think we're overspending, or certain estimates that come in just because it's a big name attached to it, where I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, we can get this for much less. Just what the final decision is obviously not my saying, but I need to point it out. Just because there is money, there's no need to waste it.
That's part of your job, yeah. What's the most outlandish request you've ever had from a client?
The most outlandish request I've ever had from a client, gosh, I mean, God, there's so many. I've had a client who that was during my hotel days actually, and she stayed with us and she watched a series that just came out on DVD and she really loved it. And she wasn't able to finish the whole season, and she flew from the US to London. And for some reason, her hotel was unable to get her a region free DVD player, some sort of a setup where she could watch the last episode. So she called me and said, like, here's my problem, or her people called me and said, here's the problem. We need you to grab the DVD player from the presidential suite and whatever adapters, chargers, etc. you need, bring it over. And I was like, yeah, well, you're joking, right? It's like, no. We've already booked you on the next British Airways flight. You're leaving in 2 hours. I'm like, all right. I mean, if that's the case, that's the case. And I went to London and deal with it.
I was reading this article in Canadian Family Offices, which is an online publication about wealth. And they'd written an article about power dynamics, particularly among couples, but they made the point that wealthy people often forget what it's like, or maybe they never knew because they were born into wealth, but they forget what it's like not to be wealthy. They've got lots of people trying to make things easy for them, and not very many people say no to them. And so they don't have to learn to live with the sense of compromise or disappointment that most people do. I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, the better you are at your job, the more that probably is the case where life's pretty easy.
It is pretty easy, but ironically, then we have clients that we had to part ways with where all they have then in their life is the problems and the drama, and people would start creating it and stirring the pot where eventually I have to step away. I mean, one example, one woman was she was always complaining about everything and like, this doesn't work and there's a leak here and constantly something going on. And we realized that's really all that she has in her life, is then to deal with people and then have vendors around her trying to fix things. And I mean, this went to an extreme where we really showed her on security camera on the footage, it's you who cut that irrigation line on your balcony, and that's why the plants are dead. So it's not the vendor. There's nothing wrong with the product. And I mean, these are extremes where you have to step away because you're set up for failure and it's never right. And it's also that type of negative energy that you don't want to be around. And I've worked for a family for a year and they've moved so many times. Every time the system was set up, everyone knew what to do, construction was done. It's like, all right, let's move. And I've wondered for so long, like, why are we constantly doing this? And until I realized, because it's boring to them when everything works. It's really more interesting when things don't work and then there's some action around them because they might be lonely or they really just, I don't know, like to complain. A lot of people thrive on drama.
Is there anything you won't do for clients?
Well, it has to be legal. Other than that, I mean, it's probably too much information, but we've given enemas to our clients. So
hopefully that's something they requested.
They've requested. I mean, it's a very funny story, actually, and the missus wanted it for X reason. And you participate in the process, and the mister walks into the bathroom. He's like, what are you guys playing here? And it's like, really awkward, but because you're in their space all day long, it really isn't awkward to them. It's just like there's someone always around, and eventually, I mean, it depends on the type of person too, but boundaries fall really quick, and that's a bit of a challenge that I have too with people that we work with and people that we place. Is it's technically up to you to create the boundaries, because the family, they will push and they will involve you more, and you need to be the one who says, listen, this is as far as I go, and the rest, no, thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it goes back to kind of what I was asking about someone who's new to this situation and learning the ropes in terms of dealing with staff. So what do you recommend, based on all of your years of experience, to be some pretty good basic boundaries for both staff and the family when they're working together?
I think it needs to be really clear of what this person was hired to do. Obviously, in that smaller environment of a personal home, there is no such thing as I'm only here to drive, I'm only here to cook, I'm only here to clean. Like, you do what's needed to take care of the family and make them happy, but obviously within reason. So I think the first step is really just being clear of what is this person supposed to do? 80% of the time. And that's what that person is supposed to do. If I constantly rope them in because I'm lonely, like go shopping with me, do this with me, do that with me, then all these other tasks are not being fulfilled. And then it eventually starts causing friction. The other very important thing is also don't pull favorites. It's very natural to people to like, I get along with this one. It's laughing around is very easy and being goofy, but that just ultimately causes problems with the rest of your team. If you have a cup of coffee with your housekeeper, have a cup of coffee with your gardener. Don't create two different sets of rules for your team, because again, it will cause a problem. And a very good example for that is when we have clients from Europe who come to the US and they have all of a sudden staff from the UK and staff from the US in under one roof. And labor laws are different in the US than they are in Europe. And then it's important for the key people, for these assistants, and also for the family to understand there's a difference. Like you cannot ask an American employee or an American worker to do certain things that are, because it's just not what's done here. It might be perfectly normal in the UK or somewhere else in the world, but it isn't. So it's understanding that too. Plus, if you bring your assistant or your massage therapist or your chef and that you're around with all the time and you have a very personal relationship, they need to have the same rules as your then support team here in Los Angeles when you come. If the staff cannot use the powder room next to the living room, then that's a rule for everyone. So it's really being aware of that. Then also a sort of like point number 3 is to inform the client or inform the family that we work with what's realistic. I mean, I get it. Everyone wants Superman and Superwoman, but certain things, if you want the housekeeper to walk the dog 3 times a day and then grocery shopping, going to the dry cleaner, this and this, it's not possible. I have a client who bought 32,000 square foot house in Holmby Hills. And he's like, I think one housekeeper is fine. I'm like, well, how is one person supposed to do this? So there's certain rules, like, I mean, again, it depends on the person's preferences and on materials and surfaces used. But like a housekeeper on average is every day they can sort of like take care of 6,000 square feet. So that's sort of like a rough formula of how many people you need to take care of your house.
I do find it interesting, you've mentioned it a few times, that there's a social element, go shopping with, have a coffee with. I have to admit that surprises me, that people are relying on their household staff to fill that role.
It's the case in a certain type of environment where you have a lot of acquaintances, you have a lot of so-called friends, but the inner circle might be very small. And all of a sudden, like your personal assistant becomes your friend, and he's there because he has to be there. Sadly enough,
Yeah.
probably the more famous you are, the more lonely you can be as well, because there's not a lot of people you might be able to trust. There's not a lot of people you might be able to let into your inner circle. Some people might just be afraid of that connection. And certain life, it can just be very superficial. It's just kind of like, who's gone to my party, who's going to this event. It's more important what people wear than, and if you are able to invite people on your yacht for summer vacation, everyone will come and everyone will accept. But are these people really going to be there then when you're not having such a good day and you just need to have a talk?
Mario obviously has a great ability to build trust with what is clearly a highly discerning clientele. And in some cases, it sounds like they trust him to understand their lifestyle needs better than they do. And it made me wonder about his personal story. Did he come from money?
I'm lucky enough, yeah. I mean, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. My parents weren't billionaires, but I come from a little bit of money. Let's just put it that way. Because I'm from Europe, Germany, Austria. I come from a very traditional family. My mother's parents, my grandparents, were very traditional people and very successful business people too. So there was always a certain way of how to do things. And I mean, friends, when I tell them, especially here in the US, how I grew up in certain ways, they just laugh about it. Because when I was at my grandparents' house or with my cousins, like we were not allowed to speak at the dinner table until an adult would address us. Myself and all my cousins, we all would kind of like go through like etiquette school with my grandparents. I've walked around, I've sat with a phone book on my head, and I was told, your feet are not positioned like this, they're not like this, they need to be like that. It goes to a point where my grandfather even said to me, like, you need to be in control of your emotions to a point where you should be able to poke a fork in your hand underneath the table, and no one at the dinner table should realize what's going on. If you go somewhere for dinner, like have a bite before you go there because A, you don't want to seem like you haven't eaten all week, or what if you don't like the food and you're just kind of like complaining about it and then you're hungry and miserable. So I've gone through a very rigorous and very traditional, probably very out to date today set of values, which I actually have to say I enjoyed it and I liked it and I appreciate it. And that's probably why I still have such a strong connection with Austria. That is a very traditional country because life has gotten so speedy and so superficial that I like the comfort of like traditional rules and customs.
There's a certain predictability about it
Yeah.
and a reliability.
So I have the advantage of understanding how wealthy people and how their world works because I've been exposed to some of that from a very early age. My life in hospitality has obviously shown me an array of people from the average Joe, someone who saved for 10 years to go on a special honeymoon trip, to celebrities, heads of states. So I've always had a very worldly view of things. And my parents also allowed me to do a lot of stuff. I came home once, I was 15, and I told him, I'm going to be an exchange student in Canada. Sign here, and this is how much it costs, and I'm leaving in 3 weeks. And they said, absolutely not. And I said, oh, yes, I will. And 3 weeks later, I was on the airplane.
What was the lure of Canada?
Originally, I wanted to go to New Zealand, but then my parents said that's way too far. So you need to be a little closer. Everyone seemed to kind of like go to the US. That seemed to be like
Too obvious.
too obvious. So I wanted to do something different. So I said, like, why not Canada? Let's do that. And I really had a good time. I actually kept extending until I graduated. And then obviously my student visa wasn't extended. And it really showed me, it opened up my eyes that there's so many great places out there in the world.
You co-founded this business with Robert Gertz, who is your partner in life as well as in business.
Yes.
And that's not something that every couple can do. How do you two balance that?
It was a progress, I have to say. The first year was tough, just purely because I'm very black and white and Robert is very gray.
Opposites attract?
Opposites attract, and we appreciate the qualities the other one brings to the table. I think that's ultimately what makes it work. I'm a little programmed worker bee. That's how I was raised. For me, it's more like you do the work and then you have the fun. And I think that's also the different culture. Here in the US, you're very social with your coworkers, versus in Germany, it's more a place of work. You want to get your work done and then you leave, and then your friends are outside of work. So it's really, for the two of us, it's understanding the two different ways of doing things and then ultimately trusting that the other person is doing what they're supposed to do. And figuring out a way to make it work. I mean, we have brought a little bit more separation in our personal life versus business life, because there's no such thing as coming home and having dinner and saying, honey, how was your day? Because I already know how the day was. We've already talked 30 times on the phone today. So it's understanding how to do that.
So we've been talking a lot about money, but I would like for this final segment to ask you a few questions that I do with all my guests about your view of money. Just rapid fire, off the cuff questions and answers. In your mind, what's the biggest misconception about what it's like to be wealthy?
That life is just fun and sunshine all the time.
Which, in your view, is more challenging, to be born into significant wealth and then live a well-adjusted life, or to grow up without money and then adjust to sudden wealth as an adult?
That's a tough one. I think it's the latter, to be honest. I think if you are born in a more modest circumstance and then you come to a lot of money suddenly, a lot of people struggle with it. It's just because all of a sudden everything is accessible. You have all these options. You can try everything, and you might go a little bit overboard. If you have were born into a lot of money, what I've noticed is a lot of our clients who have children, they teach them much more the value of a dollar, of a pound, of a euro. We have clients who are billionaires and they fly their children in premium economy just because, like, you need to be able to have something to work towards, to look forward to. If I fly you as an infant in first class, what's next? What's the next level? And again, I'm generalizing, obviously, that people who come from generational wealth are a little bit more aware of what money is, what it does for you, and what the dangers are with having too much and too many possibilities. And obviously, downsizing, I'm sure, sucks, but to a certain extent, it's probably easier than the other way around, I would assume.
Good answer. Very interesting. Who is someone you admire with respect to how they use their wealth?
God, that's an excellent question. I mean, I've worked for a very high profile person who is very involved in the philanthropic world. Obviously, there's plenty of money spent on the family's own pleasure and fun and all of that. But it's also a matter of really hard work. And I find that really very admiring. If you have everything, if you technically don't even have to work, you could just enjoy your wealth. If you're still involved and if you still have that responsibility, no, I need to make sure that business is well because I have X amount of employees and those families depend on me. I can't say who this individual is, but I think those are the type of people that I have great respect, where it's about giving back and it's easy to write the check, but it's also more on a personal level. And like that individual, I've known this person from my hotel life. And during one of the stays, I had to leave early because my dad had a heart attack. So I had to fly from Boston back to Europe. And the next time the family came, the first thing he said when he got out of the car, "How is your dad?" And that was really like where I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And ultimately, when they offered me to work for them, the reason why I said I will do it is like you have so many things on your plate. You have so many employees, you have so many charities you're involved in. Just the pure fact that you remember that personal little story from one hotel employee who takes care of you 2 months out of the year when you're in town, I was really impressed. And I think that's what really ultimately matters.
How do you define luxury?
Personally, I'm a travel freak for business and for pleasure. So, traveling, experiencing different places is a luxury for me personally. On a much simpler level, having being able to wake up without an alarm clock or not having an alarm sound wake you up, that is ultimately the biggest luxury for me.
Agreed.
I really want to thank Mario Seiler of Modern Butler for being my guest and giving us a glimpse of what's possible when you have the means and the motivation to professionalize your lifestyle management. And I have to say, our conversation has got me thinking more about what my husband and I could do with our time if we outsourced more of the administrivia that weighs us down and keeps us from more meaningful work and leisure pursuits. Something to think about for sure. If you want to know more about what Mario offers, you can follow him on TikTok or visit their website, modernbutlerla.com. Thanks for listening. We have more rich conversations about wealth planned for this season. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do so you don't miss an episode. And if you enjoyed the content, please share a rating, a review so others can find us as well. Serious Coin is provided for your general interest only, and nothing we discuss should be taken as investment, tax, legal, or other professional advice. Always talk to a licensed professional before you make any financial decisions.